catch all of that mess up from before. Now we're recording again. Okay, so release planning, shared delusion. Let's see, target toward the middle of September. We've started to collect a few high-level bullets together and have a tentative theme, so we can talk about that as well, but it's centered around improving the developer experience. We did a lot of...
Developer equals service developer, platform developer, both?
All of the above.
Okay.
Yeah, so good question. So certainly we want to make it easier for service developers, and we'll get into some we're trying to carve out some requirements as to what that means, but acknowledging that we have lots of different kinds of developers, service developers, platform developers. We have put effort into refactoring the build process, which has led to a much more containerized and pipelined build, but it's still the case that we don't provide enough different on-ramps into the build process depending on what you're trying to do. So too much of it is still targeted at end-to-end builds, which is good for integration testing and maybe required for platform developers, but not so much for service developers. So without losing the platform developer capabilities, how can we better support service developers would be one way of translating that. So another way of thinking about this is we have been fast and furious for a couple of releases now trying to get features in support of our ultimate consumers, network service providers and operators. And this is maybe, and we have kind of a green light that this is an okay thing to do. This is an opportunity for those people that are working on Cord to speak out about what the higher priorities are a little bit. So we'd like to end up this release with a software platform that the developers that work on the platform feel good about, that they've had a chance to do those things they've always known needed to be done, but just never had the time to do. So we're going to make some allowance for that. That doesn't mean there are zero, but we are definitely help from. You can see from the shared delusion list of features, as you move down the list, the ones with question marks are ones that we really, really would like to get done, but we need to figure out a way to resource them.
Do we need to put OS upgrade here to 1604? And that really is being influenced by somewhere on the chat group email list. We are being asked by Canonical, or being suggested by Canonical, to upgrade to a newer version of Mass, to both for security reasons as well as bugs performance reasons. But again, upgrading to the latest Mass requires upgrading to Ubuntu 1604.
Good, thanks. I put it on there. We'll try to figure out how to do that. So so that was kind of the highlights. I guess another highlight way of characterizing this is I've been thinking of the refactoring work that happened in Dangerous Edition, is establishing the platform foundation, maybe is a better word since the platform's overloaded. The foundation of bringing in the right modularity and so on. And now with that foundation in place, it'll be easier to go back and change out the internals of certain pieces. So get the boundaries right, and then there's a chance. This is a chance to go in and rework the implementation of some of the pieces. So with that little bit of background, let me just hit the highlights of the bullets here under shared delusion. So the first one is incremental build environment, and this is this whole business of allowing for different workflows to share a common build process. We don't want to fragment in any way to multiple pipelines, but we want to make the on-ramp less steep for different kinds of workflows. And again, there's more detail to follow, but I'll just give a quick summary. Comprehensive testing, we have a QA team that's up and running, and they've been adding a lot of QA coverage, but we want to pay attention to the gaps. And again, more details to follow, but that's a second clearly high priority. And this is consistent with, making the environment as clean as we can for developers to come in and do their job. And then the third one is cleanup, and I just called it refactor follow through. Then this is back to the point that a lot of that is in the XOS domain, but not entirely, but simply now spending the time once the refactoring is done, cleaning up those things that everyone knows need to be cleaned up. Again, more to follow. We need to upgrade ONOS. There are always Fabric upgrades to happen. We need to flesh out the details of the Fabric one. So those are all listed as high. I think that should be interpreted as we really need to get those things done in shared delusion. The next four are features that are quite high priority, but they're question marks because we're not going to be able to deliver on them unless we get community to step up. And these are really good candidates for brigades. I'd also like to see if we can get a couple two or three Cord brigades launched, and we'll talk about that towards the end of the time. But bringing Kubernetes in has been on this list for a long time. That will allow us to build an OpenStack free configuration, which is a foundation of light and write Cord. We have
Larry, I have some comments, question on a couple of these. I don't know when the appropriate time to inject those in. I don't want to.
Yeah.
Why don't you go ahead with questions, and if it's easier to defer it, I'll just defer it.
Okay. Around Kubernetes OpenStack, fully agree. The question then becomes, do we look to how to separate kind of the physical pod deployment a little better from the software deployment, so that different deployments may choose to use Mass, may choose to use Kubernetes, or may choose to use a different way to deploy their pod hardware, or a different Docker Swarm, for instance, Swarm mode. So we kind of give some separation there. Would that be under this as well?
Is this being driven by customer feedback, David, or you're just looking at technology choices beyond what we've talked about in the past, like Kubernetes instead of Swarm?
What I'm looking, first of all, I'm a full Kubernetes supporter, but I've seen, as we've worked through Slack and on the mailing list with different people, as well as at customers, you start seeing these people already have a way in their company, for example, that they deploy the hardware. So Mass is an additional burden on them, so to speak, that they don't need. And we did it so that we, it's very easy to get a pod up and running type of thing, although people question whether it makes it easier or not, but that's a different issue, right? And so the question is there a logical separation here between physical pod setup and software pod setup? That we've kind of blurred that line up to now for good reasons. I'm not going to say there weren't, but do we need to take a step back as part of that around Kubernetes and OpenStack free to say, hey, maybe there is a line of separation that we want to honor at some level and allow some flexibility for different site deployments?
I like that. It strikes me as exactly the kind of requirement that we should tack onto the incremental build environment. And incremental was intended to capture the idea that it's not one build environment, so to speak. It's modular. It's more modular, and so that should make it possible to make choices like that.
Yeah, I would characterize it as a deployment environment more than a build environment, but okay.
Yeah, me too. And I think, David, I see it falling in the demos and POCs below, where the light and write Cord or the multi-access Cord. It's almost like you have, I don't know if it's a third item, where you're again still looking at decoupling the hardware pod configuration from the reference implementation at the software level. You're just saying providing additional flexibility in the hardware configurations beyond what we've done today, right?
It is that, but it also goes beyond that, right? We're going to go into environments, I suspect, where they already have a Kubernetes infrastructure.
Right.
And so they're going to say, Kubernetes, great. You give us the containers, we can deploy it on our Kubernetes, our existing Kubernetes environment. We're golden. We might also go into a place where they say, you know what? We have a mesosphere environment. That is how we run our infrastructure. I would love to do what you have to do, but I need your containers to play there. And so it's more than just in the demos and POCs. It will take some thought on how we deploy under these different container management systems.
Right.
And again, it's not that the core team is going to do all of them. The core team say, you know, we're Kubernetes, and we're going to have to look at the community, say, if there's a community people, group, brigade that really wants to focus on Mesosphere or Docker Swarm mode, great. And they'll have to communicate and push back on each other to figure out the right interfaces going forward. But it is providing some flexibility around key infrastructure pieces, both physical as well as kind of software infrastructure pieces that allow some flexibility around deployment. And
I would argue that the Kubernetes and OpenStack free config is, and in what you're pointing out, is part of the light and write. If you think about it, it's light and write says I should be able to take my software components, my virtual network functions container, right, and deploy it either in a Kubernetes cluster that I've defined in my pod, or instantiate those off in another Kubernetes cluster that is outside of the pod. And that's a, you know, I mean, that's a lot of work, but I mean, that's the way I interpret it, but I may be wrong.
I'm less concerned which column it comes title it comes under, but I think it will have influence in different work items.
Yeah.
It's a requirement we need to take into consideration. Andy.
Yeah. So if that's a requirement, that's fine. The main challenge I see with this model of, okay, we already have our own Kubernetes infrastructure, you configure Cord to work with that infrastructure, is that we're not just deploying containers, right? The networking provided by VTN is a big part of the Cord story, and it's not so clear to me how that is going to work with somebody else's external Kubernetes infrastructure.
I agree, and part of it is not just they necessarily have an existing infrastructure. It's, look, we're a Kubernetes shop. We understand Kubernetes. If you force Swarm on us, it changes our methodology in terms of backup, restore, recovery, our built-in processes around that. So we're even more comfortable saying, yeah, great, we'll give you a custom Kubernetes cluster so you can control the networking and, you know, kind of be isolated that way. But from a business process point of view, we're this more comfortable with technology, and it's therefore less expensive to start using that than, you know, being forced down to learn technology that we're not as comfortable with.
So David, is it fair to say that what you would like to see is the infrastructure as a service that you get is as configurable as anything else?
Yeah, again, I think it's worth exploring. I'll put it that way.
Did everyone stop talking? It's quiet.
No, I was looking.
Scott, you say that as if it's a bad thing.
Hey, I just figured GoToMeeting had broken.
I'm aligned, David, with what you're saying. Is it's a set of requirements underneath these line items that we should investigate and then prioritize.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah. So double clicking on these high level features would be really good, and maybe that's a separate, you know, call.
Yep.
But I'm up for that too, especially around containers and whether it's Kubernetes. But we've been talking about Kubernetes for a long time.
Yep.
The question I have still is what is driving that OpenStack free config, right? Where we have an optional Kubernetes container-based control management plane or pure Kubernetes deployment model versus an OpenStack, right? Is that being driven by one of our service providers, a customer, or are we thinking that having that option provides added advantage to one of our use cases, such as residential? Because I wasn't a part of that. I'm to prioritize. You're really looking for what that driver is to really set direction and to create these brigades.
Yeah, it's hard to say we have customer drivers for a lot of this stuff today, because there aren't real customers today, right? They're people interested and playing around and using it and exploring it. I think, at least from my perspective, the driver towards Kubernetes is a simplification that makes technical sense. And you could argue that, if a business doesn't have OpenStack or is not familiar with OpenStack, even what we deploy today is not necessarily a full OpenStack environment that they might want in production. And so there's a huge learning curve if we're pushing something like OpenStack on them, where there might be simplicities, some ease of use issues if we go with more of a pure container environment. And so customers have expressed interest in the container management systems when I've talked to them. And I'd be nice, my vision for deploying Cord has always been essentially, starting a Docker compose file, if you will, and things just come up under that.
So is that on the control side and the management side? So we're talking really platform here, and then you're really still addressing the data plane workload, either Kubernetes or OpenStack, because we have some legacy VNFs that we want to be able to spin up in a Cord pod.
Yeah, and that might be the case, that if we look at the Cord as a whole, you could say, look, if you're not interested in VNFs that are VM based, you could bring up Cord without that part, and Cord will still work. If you need those legacy VNFs, great. We'll deploy OpenStack to accommodate that, or we'll talk to an interface, and we happen to have implemented that interface on top of OpenStack to manage that. But if you have something else that manages your bringing up of hardware, say Mass and Juju, we could do it that way too, right?
Right.
I think we just have to create those interfaces and understand OpenStack will be there in some cases, not in others. Even when we talk to Kubernetes, I think some of it's going to be what's a proper isolation, so that when we talk an API to bring up a container, we can abstract that away so that if it's Kubernetes, we go Kubernetes. Mm-hmm. If it's Swarm, you know what I mean? We don't want to bind ourselves to any one of these if we can get away with it.
Right, I agree. So I guess the question mark for the team, everybody here, is, are we moving towards an OpenStack free configuration? Do we all see that this is a high priority? I actually cannot argue that it's a high priority for this shared delusion timeframe. I could argue for introducing Kubernetes into our reference implementation, so that we are starting to look at it now, because we have been pushing it off. And it's an opportunity for us to, have it, if you will, as an option in a mixed environment. But I don't see an OpenStack free config as being one of our top priorities for the community. That's me, just based on where I see the market currently, and discussions with current operators. So are we looking to get feedback on that item today?
If the more carriers, end users, M-Cord, E-Cord, R-Cord users that we could get in terms of their priorities, for Cord, the better, right? And
right.
It's easy enough to say, here are the features we're looking at in terms of your priority is customer X. How would you rank these? That would be, from my perspective, valuable information.
Okay, so I have a chance to be in front of an operator this week. DT, as a matter of fact, who's also interested in participating, right, in the Cord community project. So let me ask the question there. And I think we also have an operator on the call. Like we've got Blaine and Sean on the phone. So it's a good, if you got, maybe Sean and Blaine, you guys can take this now or take it offline and come back and really provide us insight into AT&T's thinking.
I got about half the story because I had another call come in. I had to step away. So let me talk with Sean and I can provide feedback, or Sean has feedback right now, or he sees it. But I kind of stepped in late. So sorry about that.
Yeah, Sean?
Yeah, let's get back to the team and then provide it, maybe a follow-up. I stepped up a little bit too, so.
Great, thanks.
We sidetracked your pathway here enough, Larry? Did we lose Menlo? Is Menlo Park there? Larry?
I see their icon is grayed out, so that's not good.
Yeah, I see them editing a slide like they've completely on their own here. Let me see if
I was gonna say we had some good stuff there.
And no one heard it.
And no one heard it.
Well,
I heard it.
There you go.
I can attest. Someone said something good at some point.
We are good.
Okay, let me ping Larry. I don't know what's going on.
I'm pinging Andy.
Okay.
Sean, I didn't mean to get you. Wait a minute. Hey, I said, hey, are you there, Larry?
My next question was going to be about the OVS performance and if we need to think about things that are non-OVS based.
We'll make it done.
And all of a sudden they're on a different slide.
Maybe that was intentional.
Yeah. I was trying not to believe that, but it's possible.
So I gathered that was virtualization abstraction. That was really a question whether it was containers and VMs.
It was around
we really just talked about
do users of Cord. Yeah, what's a priority in terms of carriers or other eCord, mCord customers with respect to going to a non-OpenStack deployment? A Kubernetes or Docker Swarm mode, or Mesosphere only mode of Cord versus maintaining an OpenStack instance. Is there a prioritization there from the carrier's perspective?
Isn't there? So, for example, in OpenStack, there's a extension to make Kubernetes operate as a first-class citizen.
Yes.
Within OpenStack, and we'll probably end up going that route initially. So I think it's a little lower priority for us, and that would be more of an internal our own app type of integration effort aspects of it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Even talking. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. Now,
Yes.
can you hear this?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
we had so much to say on slide number 2 yet, and we saw that you moved on to QA, so we thought you guys did that conveniently.
That's our secret, though. So you guys had more to say. All right, let's finish we'll finish QA, and then we'll come back to. That's
I am kind of curious what the recording caught, us or you, but that's okay.
Oh, that'll be interesting, yeah.
So if they haven't heard any of the QA stuff, we may want to go back.
No, we have not.
All right, none of the QA. Okay, so we'll replay that in a second. So you had some comments, or funny how audio went out just as I asked if you had any questions.
I think that was intentional.
So trying to summarize what we talked about was, again, the OpenStack free config and prioritization of that in terms of the other issues here. We did hear, I think it was Blaine that mentioned from an AT&T perspective, when they look at Kubernetes, they're probably looking at using Kubernetes through OpenStack, and so a non-OpenStack deployment is less of a priority to them. That's one data point.
And I'm going to go find another data point this week by chatting with DT, just to get some additional service provider point of views. But I do know that that's kind of what I've been hearing as well, is that OpenStack free is a low priority for this time frame.
Yeah, that's not what we've heard, but that's good to get more data. So having Kubernetes does not imply it has to be OpenStack free. It gives you the opportunity to be OpenStack free.
Yep.
So
right.
We should definitely make that distinction.
Yeah.
So it would actually be quite interesting to run Kubernetes, for example, and OpenStack simultaneously and see what comes of that. So what's confusing here by what you just said is light and write cord. A key aspect of that is that not have OpenStack as too strong a requirement, but the requirements as to footprint and recovery times make it difficult to support OpenStack.
Yeah.
So what is your take on light and write cord if it doesn't imply OpenStack free?
Well, again, what is making Cord heavy and left or wrong, I guess, right? I didn't want to use wrong; it seemed wrong. And part of that is the deploy cycle, and there are lots of things that contribute to that. It's not by far not only OpenStack.
Sure.
But then you could say from a deployment cycle, if there are certain parts of Cord that I could kind of start, stamp, and run and never have to touch them again as I go through an edit cycle, you could argue that would help, right? Why do I have to redeploy OpenStack each time?
Yeah.
Could I have kind of and this goes back to what we talked about earlier in terms of kind of splitting the physical pod setup, and is there another layer here, right? Physical pod, infrastructure, and then the layers on top of that. And so if I'm editing, building services, or even doing XOS, kind of that type of platform work, I might be able to, reinstall that, re-update that, go through the edit cycle on that without having to touch all this other stuff. And I think that would, from a developer point of view, at least help, I would think.
All right, so I'm going to try to capture this, decouple, help me here, physical, software, or let me call it hardware, software deployment targets.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah, something like that. I think again, this is a bullet on a slide, so it needs to be backed up by more words and thoughts.
Yeah. Okay. But hopefully we have enough people watching me type this that someone will remember what we meant by that. All right.
Decouple hardware, software. Yeah, I think so.
Okay. So other comments on the high-level platform roadmap before we move to QA?
OVS performance, DPDK. OVS is one way to do kind of software switching. Have we thought about some of the other capabilities, SoftNIC, other things that
You're breaking up, David.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Let me start over. Have we thought about using other technologies than OVS in this instance?
David, we didn't hear you through that.
Okay, let me type it maybe.
Well, no, you're doing fine, but you were breaking out pretty bad.
Okay. I'm just curious if we've thought about other soft switching technologies than OVS.
Yeah, there have been discussions at various times, BEST being a really good example. And even, even narrowly in terms of what Intel was interested in, that would potentially be a follow-on effort. But I think your point that there's a, just the mention of the software switch is a category of work that someone could put time into is correct.
Okay.
I think the way I've framed it as VPDK OVS performance optimization was kind of a packaging of what Intel was saying they were interested in pushing. So I was running with that.
Okay. I also have some questions about fabric scale, and not does the fabric scale so much, but in terms of the edge devices on the fabric, what sizes of tables are we looking for if we have rules applied for each double tag at one end, or incoming rules on the other end for mapping IPs to the right tags? Is potentially a significant number of rules, and I'm waiting for some feedback from Saurav on some of these questions. I've asked him. It may or may not be a problem, but I don't know if we tested the fabric at scale in terms of the edge.
Yeah, hi, I know I need to respond to your email. I'll do that today.
Okay.
But, I mean, a quick answer is the fabric hardware that we are using right now can support 128,000 entries in the table that we use to match on VLAN tags.
And if that table's rather populated, the overall switching performance is still maintained?
Yeah, that's the function of the ASIC. Your wireline
Yep.
speed will be maintained.
Okay.
How much? It's not a software switch. So
yep.
The ASIC will be fine.
Okay.
Anything
Thank
else? Thanks, David. Okay, I'm going to move to QA, and then I'm going to give everyone on the line an opportunity to say that you still hear me.
We hear you.
Okay. For a second there, I thought maybe it was QA.
I was saying it was going to be a great prank, but it was blown. All right.
Okay.
Crack me up. Should I repeat everything?
Go ahead. Start from the top.
All right. So for QA requirements, we have many requirements which are high, and with the help of Sienna and Radisys, we hope that we will be able to meet all these requirements. And the first and foremost very important requirement from QA side is the enhancement of the existing framework in order to support the physical pod. And whatever tests that we have been running on CIAB, we would like to port all these tests to run on the physical pod. And we do have some automated Jenkins jobs which are running CIAB tests right now, and we would create a new Jenkins job to have the same test run on the physical pod as well, and which is the highest requirement. And the next requirement that we have is have the framework support in the automation Cord tester to have support Volta and create some functional tests around Volta and vRouter areas. And we also have a requirement to enhance CI/CD based tests, and also some the framework that we had used around CI/CD, we would like to enhance it so that some of the unit tests could be run and to stabilize the platform various repos that we have right now. And we already have like few jobs as part of CI/CD, but still there are more tests to be added, and we might have to enhance them further. So we have the plan. And also from the brainstorming session, if there is any other enhancements that need to be done as part of the CI/CD, we are willing to help the development as well, based on the size of the story and whether we can accommodate as part of the QA task. And another important requirement we plan to support is the framework upgrades for the performance and scale requirements. And we would try to achieve as part of shared delusion some basic performance and scale tests that we would like to run for the Cord platform. And with the collaboration of IXIA and Spirent, we are also evaluating some tools which would help us run some of these performance benchmarks. We plan to achieve, as part of shared delusion, at least some basic performance and scale tests. We still need to evaluate IXIA, so hopefully we do it as part of shared delusion. And the next requirement is also for the, we would like to start the automation framework, the basic framework evaluation for extending the Cord Tst platform for MCOT. We have a collaboration with Intel, and hopefully we can at least try to achieve some basic enhancements on the MCOT framework from the automation side as well. So these are the requirements for QA. And any questions? Okay, thanks.
What is your biggest challenge right now?
Biggest challenge is the physical part, to have automated jobs run on the physical pod, and also the CIAB. So if we have the builds faster, then that would really help us run the nightly jobs even faster.
Good.
Yep.
And the performance scale framework, is that meant to be done on the physical?
Yes. Yes. We would evaluate first with the CIAB and also have the physical pod. If the problem is we just have one physical pod right now, the first important requirement is on the physical pod. But if we cannot, then we have to do it on the CIAB.
It's meaningless on the CIAB.
The numbers are meaningless.
Yeah. Numbers are meaningless. But if your framework, I guess you can test it again.
Yeah, hopefully if we can get the pod, another pod available, then we would continuously use it for the performance and scale.
Is that what Spirent is trying to do?
Yes, Spirent is trying to do that, but haven't got that yet. Yeah.
Okay, good. Questions online? Okay. Cord, whichever one, and there's the mic.
Hello, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. We'll keep doing keep it live like that.
So for eCord, I guess the main theme is hardening the platform, and the new feature or the novelty that we want to work on is analytics, and in particular that's OAM. This is the biggest recurring, not demand, but question we got from all interested parties is okay, how can we do the service activation, the programmable probes, all of that. I don't want to go into detail of what exactly that means, because I don't think we fully understand how much or how little we'll be able to complete. But I think that's the main priority for new developments and eCord, apart from all the hardening. Yes.
So this comes from the trials that people are.
Yeah, well, it comes from service providers that are just showing interest. The first question they ask, how can I do that? Well, you can't really. Yeah, exactly. And then the other part is all the, there's some recent developments around the Asian carriers that are stepping up. And this is, again, very high on their priority list. So it's something we've known we've had to tackle, or at least start doing for a while. I think now is the right time. Okay. The second high priority topic, and those are the only two ones, is to work more on the transport. Again, in light of one of the Asian carriers that stepped up, they have a very specific use case for bandwidth on demand in the transport. It's something we've been struggling with, in that there's so many types of transports out there. We didn't know what to build that is generic. So this is a great opportunity for us to build something that will, be an actual use case that is driven by a service provider for the transport part. Then in terms of lower priority, but the first one is medium, is continued work on the Ethernet edge. This is a bit like OLT, or, well, yeah, I guess the comparison to OLT is not far. This kind of never stops anyway, or at least not in the next, in the foreseeable future. So we'll try to bring in more white boxes and see if we can, you know, generalize our solutions to cover a bit more ground. Lowest priority is security. This is work really being driven by Argella, where they're looking to bring in, you know, bolted or locked down northbound APIs, security services, those type of things. Again, I don't want to go into too much detail, but yeah, I guess.
So that's also has a platform dependency potential.
Yes, exactly. That's right. Yeah.
So security is on the platform roadmap.
Yeah, there's really two pieces here, or at least what they've spoken to me about is, one is kind of value add services, an encryption kind of a VM that makes sure your end-to-end connection is encrypted. The second part is more the APIs and how to lock down or encrypt the northbound APIs for your applications or orchestrators or whatnot. Okay. And then, yeah, in terms of dependencies, so one is security, the other one is, oh yeah, but that's a good point, by the way, Larry, the access control. So they were also talking or thinking about the kind of group policies and roles, essentially, where you say, okay, I have this kind of user that is logged in, he can access these pieces of the Cord API. Okay. The other part of dependency is finally to do the full integration on the pseudo-wire capability. I don't know if there's been a lot of dependency on the Cord platform at this point, because I, you know, from what I hear or understand, the platform or the fabric's job is done. It's really now for us to consume. But
we're still not ready.
Well, I know there's a piece there, but we also need to do our part before we can all bring it together. So yeah, I guess, you know, waiting for that bug to be fixed is not really the platform team, but
yeah, but
I'll get to work.
In Scheduletion, we'll be upgrading the fabric to
the newer
new version, because it comes automatically through on us on .11.
Okay,
right?
Sounds great.
So therefore, you will have to catch up as well.
Okay. Okay.
So it's the X Proto.
I put it there.
It's a tiny.
Because it's basically I need some time with Sappen to figure out what my services need, what eCord services need in terms of Explorer refactoring, and that's kind of it. I chatted with him a little bit. It's not going to be a lot of time, but I guess he's really booked until the release of Dangerous.
Yeah, we need a few cycles from the Cord.
Exactly. We need a couple
Cord
just sitting together or on chat and just make it happen. So the fact is that I would say 90% there, and the missing piece is Explorer. So I have patches for the Docker files, make files, synchronizer containers, bringing up like the whole Docker related part of it. That's done, and it was tested until like 10 days ago against master. But then I stopped Explorer development because I didn't know, and I needed Sappen help.
Sappen's in the middle of checking a whole bunch of big stuff in right now.
So I was stopped by depending on him, basically.
So is there a roadmap item which is completing integration on Dangerous Edition?
Should we put that on the roadmap?
Well, I would. We don't technically have it in the roadmap, but it should be.
Yeah, no, we didn't do that.
So I don't know where do we put that? Is it in the shared delusion or is it in a Dangerous Edition? So I've noted it here.
They're not locked anymore.
So these are those are Cord platform names in my way.
Right.
And then eCord is going to land on platforms of your own roadmap, right? the first time you integrate will be with Dangerous Edition, right? So
Yep.
I'm thinking eCord has a kind of an official release that is on Dangerous Edition, right? And then you'll have a roadmap item
That's
to
right, yeah.
provide support on shared delusion.
So, okay. So to know that, we'll need to know when Sapan can spare cycles. I think that, and we need to merge like one or two things, but
Yeah, there are
they're
three
kind of done, right?
They're merged, to be merged, I need to maybe
So,
update it.
okay.
Do some end-to-end testing.
I don't think we can give the timeline now, but yeah,
So
tomorrow or in 2 days.
So right, so,
Just getting
So
it
for
on.
what
Yeah,
it's worth,
yeah, we can do that, sure.
so,
for what it's worth, the entire process of refactoring the eCord service models to use Xproto is going to take less than a day.
This is
And I guess it would depend on the timeline that.
he thinks it's not going to take very long.
Okay,
It's gonna take less than a day. That's what he told me.
yeah, but when does he have to do?
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the thing.
So the plan here, and I don't know if, Bill, I've got this recorded in quite the right way. And I guess this should be a roadmap item under Dangerous Edition is the way you're looking at it.
Yeah, I guess so.
However it gets spliced in.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
What we're planning on is in maybe about a month, just whatever I don't have a firm date, we will do an updated release of Dangerous Edition, let's call it 3.1, maybe it's 3.01. And it will, then suddenly the eCord stuff will be included. And any other upgrades to the platform required, but hopefully there won't be any.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask the same question for
well,
M-Cord.
yeah, so I think one of the things, we'll look at slide 6 in a bit, but I think what we need from eCord is a similar planning process, where as you look at your releases, when are you integrating in Dangerous Edition and Shared Delusion? So for example, M-Cord is doing kind of a staggered thing, right? Where the M-Cord September release will use Dangerous Edition, and then the follow-on release will use Shared Delusion.
Got it.
So
There'll be one release behind instead of
Yes.
1 month behind.
yeah, and so I think we need to do something similar where we need to understand from the eCord perspective the requirements, because the version that will use Shared Delusion, we need to start building in those requirements. So the M-Cord requirements on being able to treat, right, the core network and WAN as services, we're building into Shared Delusion as a requirement. So we need to start looking at how things are staged out.
Right. I may be wrong about this, but I would not be surprised to see it possible to get eCord like our Cord synced with the platform releases, but we'll see. It looks enough like our Cord
Yeah, that's
that I think, and you know, going forward, and it's what happened with Dangerous Edition is as the platform upgrades, part of what happens is people like Sapan will go in or Scott and then bring along those services that were in sync and get them back in sync, or at least contribute heavily to that. Okay. Yeah, that actually, it probably is a 3.01 simply because chances are there won't be any, it'll just be, there's suddenly some more services that are available that weren't in the 3.0 release. Anything else? eCord. Anyone online? Questions?
So I did just want to clarify the 3.0 will include Xproto for our Cord, so all of the stuff that we have in flight and master right now will get ported to 3.0. And then 3.01 is just going to be eCord added to that.
Yeah, that's the plan. Now, it wasn't clear to me if you were asking a question or making a statement. I hope you were making a statement.
I was asking a question where I expected the answer to be that statement. Yeah, we were just discussing in Slack whether to push things currently into Cord 3.0 branch, and the answer is yes, we should.
Yes. Okay. M-Cord.
Okay, so within M-Cord, one of the biggest things that we need to do is catch up with XOS and improve on service descriptions. And like Leanne said, one of the things that we will ask from the Shared Delusion is service chaining and the capability to define EPC as a service, RAN as a service, or EPC slice as a service, and things of that sort. Do you have a comment?
Well, I was waiting for the train to go by. Do you have new requirements on chaining? Is that?
No, but we have to start developing it.
And you may discover you do as you get into that. Okay.
Exactly. And then, yeah, that's exactly my point.
So it might be helpful, because you already alluded to it, just to go to the dependency slide for just a second. So the plan is for the September release of MCORD will be based upon the May release of the platform.
Yes.
Good. All right. And so follow on behind. Okay. So coming back then to the right way to read this.
Yeah, for September, this is what we're asking from shared delusion, basically, right? So the capability for service chaining and whatever extra things we may actually discover when we start developing that with an MCORD.
What's missing with the current service chain?
I don't know. Maybe
okay.
Keep it an open. It's an open question.
So there may be.
There may be.
Okay. Okay.
One of the requirements was to be able to treat a chain as a service.
Chain as
Yeah.
a service.
So there's a way to do that without elevating it up. And just as an example, MCORD, or not, I'm sorry, not MCORD, ACORD, the monitoring service, internally is structured as a set of microservices. They get packaged as one service, each one in their own slice, but the fact that there's microservices and there's not visible externally. And so it chained internally in whatever way made sense.
But this is, the services are also visible.
Yes. So what I'm specifically talking about, let me give you an example. Let's talk about an EPC slice as a service. When I actually onboard this service, I would like that to also onboard and configure automatically the underlying services, which are the MME as a service.
Okay, got it.
Serving gateway as a service. And so the higher tier service should onboard and configure the underlay services and stitch them together.
Good. That's a great target to do.
So that's what I would like to get.
Okay. So, and there may be platform requirements that come
Yes,
out of that.
and then there may be, and then actually it's quite likely that there will be. Sure.
So those are some of the use cases we're talking about as part of the service instance modeling.
Got it. Okay. So this, all right. So,
and in addition, two of these top level services, if you will, should be configured in such a way that when MCORD comes up, they should be automatically, along with the initial power up, they should be onboarded and configured.
right. So there will be default services that are always there.
Yes.
And they then are charged or contribute to the bringing up of other services.
Exactly.
That'll be interesting to work through.
Yes. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things that we will be doing. Another
and just to be clear, if there are requirements on the platform, they would get into the release of shared delusion, the platform, so that you could take advantage of them in MCORD in the following release.
Yes.
Got it.
Yes. If not shared delusion, maybe a 0.1, 0.2 versions of shared delusion.
Okay.
Another big thing is XRAN integration. We are really hoping for a POC in September for this, and that requires an XRAN ONOS, basically. So and that being integrated into the MCORD solution. So that will require a new ONOS, basically. And then another POC that we are hoping for the September MCORD is a CBRS capability. And that will probably not necessarily require a lot from the platform, but for MCORD, that would mean a soft server to be a new VNF and a RAN offering to be made capable of a CBRS support. And then, I think another thing that we have to do within MCORD is with the new XOS redesign, along with these new approaches for XOS, we have to go back and the underlay services and see what changes need to be made for the.
So
and
so dependencies.
The dependencies are the XOS redesign.
How does that? So it's not. That's a new requirement on the platform. This is how does this new aspect of the platform impact?
Yeah, exactly. It will cause us to change our XOS configurations.
Got it.
And then the PDK-based OVS or any accelerator is there because the Intel has been championing in a great way our open source EPC work. And that scalability that they bring has potentially OVS as a bottleneck. So the acceleration there, especially when the time comes to do stress testing, will be quite important. And specifically for XRAN ONOS, we would be using a gRPC, hopefully protobuf plus gRPC as the API communication. So that support we will be needing.
Okay.
This is on us.
Yes.
So this, right, that's another. So this is, that you change that to September release makes sense. We need to figure out a good way to talk about the roadmaps for the projects like MCORD with, where.
Yeah. And I think the next slide captures it better.
It did, yeah. So we need to come up with just a different format to think about this. Yeah,
I agree.
I was gonna quickly ask about the open source EPC. What does that really mean? Is that the Radisys?
So Radisys first gracefully open sourced their EPC, and then in parallel, Intel had a serving packet gateway solution, which was very scalable. Okay. But since then, Intel has stepped up and have taken the Radisys components, specifically the MME, and they have enhanced it for a newer release. And they have also integrated into their packet serving gateway. And they have also one component that was missing in the Radisys solution was an HSS. So they have also utilized the open air interface open source HSS, and they have refactored that to integrate into the whole offering. So that's what I mean by version 2.0.
Hello, this is Murat. I want to ask something. Maybe some of you from the ONOS are knowing that the gRPC support in the ONOS, I think it's for the northbound, right? Does it also include the southbound?
The original plan is focused on the northbound, but I think the intent was to just add the mechanism, right? So if there are plans to come in the southbound, I think there would need to be support maybe from the Cord Tst.
Yes. Yeah, we would be needing it for the southbound.
And we have a discussion today.
You're free to write southbound providers that use GFP in some devices.
Yeah.
So my only, this is all great. My only other comment is, if we get to the point that there is our new XOS or this generally platform requirements, VPN requirements, whatever they are, and they need to be in place by middle of September. so that you can build on in the following release. It's hard to tell how much give there is in the schedule because it's not firm yet, but we wouldn't necessarily have the cycles to do that. So we're going to need to be careful and maybe get a prototype from you that we can iterate on or something.
Yes, and you also have to realize the September deadline for us is not really geared towards a release per se, but it's more a POC that we're committed. So as long as we have a makeshift solution, which we can then harden and turn it into a release, we are okay.
Okay, good. All right. Anything else? Cord?
That's all I have to say.
Great, thanks. Anyone online? All right, let's step up to Cord, and who's going to speak for Cord? Tom, is that you?
I could, maybe. So yes, Bora is being sort of basically, he's been leading us a little bit, from Argela's perspective, some of the work that we have done in the past on this. But what he's been working and getting some help from Andy and.
Hey, Tom, can you move closer to the mic, to the speaker, please?
Yeah, speak up, please. Sure. Okay. So he's been basically getting some help, to see if he can get the broken Cord that we have today, get that up and running as the baseline. And in addition to that, between Santia, myself, and Bora, we started putting some requirements around some of the work that we want to do, what we're calling it software-defined collectors. And Jira, is getting updated with some of the tasks. We're trying to break them down in that sense. So we're trying to first show this adaptive analytics framework can be driven and maybe, adapted by the various projects such as, Cord, Cord, and Cord. And I guess that's really, the rest of it, I don't know. I think there's a broad view analytics, S-Flow. We already have done those demonstrations in the past, so I'm not sure what changes have to be done to show that. But broad view aspects is more of a hardware level probe, where we can go and look at the underlay fabric, for example, to see what's going on from diagnostics or instantiate some APIs that Broadview provides us. And so I guess that's where we are. So, assurance as a service has been something done with Viavi. We are trying to see what is it that they can open source. We've been having a hard time getting them to release anything. So, but I think, their work seems to be aligned, and they have been integrating with Cord platform as well. And selective traffic mirroring was Ixia. I think somebody from Ixia who's been working on it they can tap into basically the traffic flows and be able to bring the traffic or the collection of set of traffic samples out to some containers or some analytics platform, higher level analytics. In fact, Ixia is here today, so we'll be talking to them right after that to see how we can measure this. So that's where we are. We're just trying to get our hands around analytics code and see if we can push towards a unified software-defined collector that can be adapted with the rest of the code projects.
So as I know that we're just trying to get this bootstrapped. What does the team look like? Yeah.
So Bora, he's got, I think, maybe, one other person from Argela, so far, and we are thinking, we don't have a Shirikan anymore, so, we need to get somebody who can get very familiar with that existing code that we have. And in addition to that, we are trying to see if we can get somebody from Ixia who can be on this full time. So that's really about it. That's all we have.
So we have both Alex and Werner that wanted to bring developers into this solution.
Okay.
Try to do that.
Yeah. I just wanted to, you
Sure.
heard from them because I wasn't able to make yesterday's call.
So are they going to actual developers?
On yesterday's call.
Okay. And did Mariner say anything yesterday, or he just?
Well, we didn't specifically ask about them having developers involved.
Okay, and there are other people that will post every now and then, so I'm getting into analytics.
Sure.
we've got to figure out a way to.
I think once we get the JIRA, defined of all the real tasks, for the next 3
Look like
months.
a project, be a
Right,
project.
and then we can see, who can pick what part of the JIRA tasks and all of that. So that's where we are. So we're just trying to get, the work that has to be done in the next 3 months. At the same time, consider the vision that we have for the SD collector.
Got it. All right.
So the other question is are these features going to be released as part of the shared delusion of Cord?
It can be. Some of them are already there. So.
But the plan is to release with the platform, or is this a separate release?
I don't know.
Undetermined. So I think it's possible that getting the monitoring service back up to speed, not unlike eCord is doing, but it fallen behind. Once we come step down is high likelihood, and so there could be a 302, or maybe it's combined with 301. E and A could make it out simultaneously, possible. So
So E and A are releasing with the platform.
I think they can both be very soon behind the platform, yeah. And maybe going forward, we're able to keep them in sync.
Yeah, and what I meant with releasing with the platform is it's a derivative 3 dot something, right? Versus Cord, I think is just using 3.0, but they're doing a whole release on their own.
I think that it would be good if I think there's a really good chance that we can get to that state.
Okay, so it's just not separate releases, they'll be released as incremental platforms.
Yes. That would be the plan of record for right now.
The reason is there's a dependency on Cord in terms of selective traffic mirroring, right, which is kind of lower priority. But it sounds like Ixia is going to step up and do this. So is there an integration effort we need to take into account on the platform as Ixia brings this in?
Right, so that is tracked, yes. And it's on the platform side, that is tracked as the mirroring subscriber traffic. So if it's up to code when we get to the shared delusion release, could be included. If it's not, it'll trail behind.
Their developer is actually here right now in the cafeteria. I asked him to see if he can stop by so he can meet you guys as well. So it'd be good to, I think they're working towards their own demos that they have in 2 weeks or something, and the question is, how do we motivate them to really work towards this next release of the shared delusion? So we might need some help on that.
Yeah, so that will be a feature that I listed it as exploratory under platform because I just didn't want to count on it, but it potentially could make some progress. All right, and that actually isn't critical unless there are features in monitoring service in Cord that depend on that are also available for shared delusion. Questions online? All right, let's move on to Volta. Yeah, go ahead.
So the Volta roadmap is in flux right now because many of the Volta leadership, as you know, has left, and ON Lab is in the process of determining what the Volta structure is going to look going forward. So the 2 things that I can definitely say right now that we are looking at for shared delusion is that Volta needs to be integrated into the rest of our Cord.
Yay.
That was a yay.
That was a yay. And then the next question was, is that going to be the de facto architecture? Meaning, I get that there's going to be more changes, but we're moving away from the Volt agent-based architecture to the Volta architecture.
Yeah, it'll be the de facto. Yes, we will not be using the old Volt agent anymore. We'll be using Volta. It will be integrated into our Cord. That's the plan in shared delusion. You can see it was a plan in Dangerous Edition as well, but didn't happen. So for one, so the one thing that I can say that will happen in shared delusion is that. Aside from that, there is strong interest to have an OLT ONU adapter for the Broadcom Maple plus Qumran OLT ONU combination, and that is also something that we will be working on in shared delusion.
Can I ask why didn't Dangerous Edition pick up the Volta support? Was it just because of the lack of component team members to support the integration? I'm just curious because really now we're really looking at the September timeframe for picking up Volta, right?
Well, I'm hoping that it'll happen earlier, but it won't be part of the official release, for sure.
Right.
Why didn't it happen? I don't know. I wasn't in charge. There was a lot of flux in the last couple of months.
Well, I think it's also the case that there isn't a single open source component that it would have been an empty Volta.
Yeah, that's right. We would have put something to our card, but we couldn't run it against anything because anything that does run against Volta is actually proprietary. So that leads us to the second element that you see on the roadmap, which is developing an as much as open possible implementation that runs at least on one piece of hardware that we can run Volta against.
And that's the Broadcom Maple. Okay, all right, thank you. Yeah.
So now it can continue to run against everything else that is proprietary and has been running against in isolation. We don't prevent that. We don't. So that is welcome to go on, but from an ON lab perspective, from an R-Cord perspective, from a developing a pod perspective, we don't have anything today that is as much as open as possible, so we will be working on that. So aside from these two elements on the shared delusion roadmap, there's a bunch of other things that are really copies of what was supposed to be in Dangerous Edition. We don't know the status of those. We don't know if we're going to be working on those. Those are things that still have to be worked out once we work out what happened with the project structure and all. That's all I have.
So if we can hit it, the plan is Volta is the default R-Cord OLT structure, and we have at least one open source device supported and open source for at least one device and that device so that people can go out and build pods based upon the open source.
Now we're also making a stake in the ground by saying it's XGS PON and later, right? And NG PON 2, essentially, skipping.
So the nice thing about the Broadcom Maple plus Qumran is that you can use it for XGS PON, but if you wanted, you could use it for GPON, you could use it for GEPON, there's a variety of PONs that combination supports.
Okay. So we're going to we're going to put a plan in place to validate one or all of them as part of this reference architecture.
I think we will target XGS PONs to start with, but and then see how it evolves for any other kind of PON. But the nice thing is the hardware supports all these different variations of PON.
Right, and then the microsemi is still the GPON only, right? So right now it supports GPON and XGS PON.
Yeah, but the microsemi support in Volta is incomplete, and we're not planning on working on it.
Okay.
We don't get any support from microsemi, and mostly Ali was doing that work, and he's left.
My name is still out there to help any way I can in managing one or two releases with the team. So, please consider that. I'm happy to provide equivalent Scrum Master capabilities that we do today with the platform. I don't know if this needs to come from OnLab or we can put our name in the hat. I want to help anywhere I can there.
Yes, thank you, Donna. We do appreciate that. Just give us some time to work some things out, and we will
Yeah.
definitely.
Thank you.
This is Sean from AT&T. So I know, so in phase 2, we're finishing up our phase 2 pod, XGS pond testing this week. And then we have the contribution from all 3 participants. I think they're trying to address the same, let's say that like a IGMP relay or IGMP query related issue. So all 3 participants is submitting code. So it would be great if the code, sort of redundant work has been going on, and it will be great if we can, how to say that, share that kind of work. But immediate concern is when those code can be merged into the existing Volta code, and then how exactly, between the 3 vendors, which one is the best code. I don't know whether that's the way to look at it.
The real question to answer, Sean, is why has there been redundant code written? So let's fine. We'll talk to you. We'll figure some things out, and then we'll come to answers to these questions that you're asking.
Right. So
I thought the plan was to meet next week sometime, kind of get together and kind of go over, because I think there's redundant code. There's also different code as we address different things. And so I honestly think what's going to happen is we're going to see kind of a merging of the different patch sets into a single kind of push forward.
Right. I'll send out a meeting maker. So if I have that meeting next week, early next week. So I think, that's something, we hope maybe in phase 3 we can better improve the at least on the code contribution side, so and maybe we can, divide and conquer. I'll send out a meeting invite.
Yeah, next week would be good. That way, Amit on our side from Radis's side can join. I know that's what we were banging around, and David wasn't going to be able. Right, David, you weren't going to be able to be available this week. So next week would be great, Sean.
Okay.
All right, thank you. I think, anything else on Volta? All right. So let's move on here. We're down to our roughly last half hour. Deliverable. So maybe more of this is you should address since you hold the information together.
I don't think we have the
Okay, so we've got the Cord build in early November. This was timed to be safely after shared delusion, and we will pull together some tutorial information as well. This is modeled after Onos build. It'll be here in the Bay Area as well.
An email for that just went out.
Okay, thanks. I haven't looked at email. Are there other, and we know about the MWC demo, are there other demos or promises? I'm not talking trials here. These are demo side. We missing anything? Okay. Let's see, what else do we have? We've got a release schedule. What do we have? 5 sprints to feature freeze and 1 sprint's worth of hardening.
So this is the proposed schedule for shared delusion. We're looking at 6 sprints, with the last sprint being the hardening sprint and feature freeze on August 25th. And then we're targeting mid-September for the release.
Good. This is a repeat of the architecture slide. I guess the updates are targeting what version of OpenStack are we targeting, and ONOS we're definitely targeting 1.11.
I think we heard that there was a request to upgrade math.
Yeah, David, what's the target for mass that they want?
It's mass 211 or something like that. I'd have to look back to see the exact one. Basically, bring it up to latest.
Okay. All right, so I think I would like to not spend a lot of time on these, and they're not complete anyway. So on the bill, this is a set of requirements. We can come back to these if time permits, but I wanted to get to the brigade. So be sure to take a look at these. Trying to capture, again, these are trying to capture requirements, the what, not the how. So there's still, as you see the open issue, there's lots of ideas here, and we need an actionable plan that meets these requirements. And various people are in various stages of pulling plans like that together. So we'll wait to see those. And I'm sure they'll be posted to Devel so people can comment on them. Testing, again, it's about coverage from unit test to end-to-end tests. There's a concerted effort to make sure we get unit tests checked in for every bit of code we can, but we also then need a bit of coverage framework to tie all that together. Functional tests, there are a set of them, but the plan there is just to address the biggest points of pain and gaps as we see them.
With the testing, is the CI/CD the objective here, so we can continuously add, new releases, or especially now that we have Ixia and Spire and those guys, probably can also help with some of the continuous regression testing.
Yeah. I mean, that is the plan. This is related also to build, but yes. And again, there's a bit of redundancy here between the focus on what the platform team's doing and what the QA team's doing, and they're pretty reasonably, talking to each other. So I think that's all good.
But I think, so going back to the test slide, right, one of the things that we're focusing on is making sure that unit tests are, that we're focusing on improving unit test coverage. So we're saying this is the target for the platform, but similar to that, the derivative Cord should also take into consideration to make sure that coverage is improved.
So a very specific deliverable for shared delusion is that we can tell what our coverage is, our unit test coverage.
But ideally, as we look at Cord and the various platforms, it would be nice if that can be a general requirement or target for everyone.
All right, and then the refactor follow through, clean it up. Right, so like I said, we can come back and drill down on those in a little bit, but I wanted, and that only counted the top 3 features, which were developer contributed. What I wanted to get to are the brigades, and I've started to just put down a list of possibilities here. Something online? I'm lost David too. All right. I don't have, I'm sure it's been emailed to me, but it's going to be disruptive if I go try to dig something out. Does anyone have the brigade what is it, a
requirement
template, the brigade template available to show if I were to make you presenter?
So one of the things we've been trying to do on the other side that we'd probably adopt over here is, right, with every brigade, there's the concept of the lead, a mentor associated with it, and a product owner. And so what we want to make sure is that the product owner is available with the brigade to help ensure requirements and use cases are.
All right, so let's talk about those. So product owner is not.
I can show you the slide if you want, Larry.
That the same? Yeah. Okay. Let me see if I can make you presenter. Okay, you should have the presentation.
Yes. So, okay, give me a minute. Okay, show my screen. All right, so this is, can you see it?
Yep.
Okay. So this is basically the methodology we are planning to use to drive use cases that drive solutions. So sorry, let me build this up. Okay, so the use case steering team, which will be operator-led, would drive the definitions of the use cases, which would translate to kind of work items done in brigades. The product owner would be someone which would be the sponsor of that use case or the feature or what have you. And obviously, this is being loosely termed as a use case, but it can be a potentially a platform enhancement or any other work item we figure out to run in the brigade. And again, the 6-month target is again a target. Some brigades can be longer depending on the scope of work. But so that is that. So how we expect this to work is this, well articulated use case and market driver, clear mandate for what that brigade will deliver, and using agile methodology, obviously. The product owner would be the expert from the network operator, typically the service provider-led this kind of ownership of this, who would provide solution requirements and prioritize the functions and features for that brigade. The tech lead would be a subject matter expert, obviously chosen either from ON Lab or the community, wherever the resources are available, and hopefully more from the community and less from ON Lab, given our constrained resources. That person or persons would be the primary interface to TST and service provider, and they would have to commit to about 20 hours per week on this project. So this is a pretty significant commitment they are making, but that they are making for a short time. And then from the community, we would recruit 4 to 8 engineers. Sometimes can be smaller, but typically 4 to 6 would be ideal, who can devote 15-20 hours a week is our expectation. Sometimes it can be smaller, right, for if the team is large enough. And the goal would be to integrate the output into the open source project, Cord in this particular case, but ONOS also, if that's another brigade. So that is the general framework and a template for what a brigade looks like. Larry, that makes sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
So you can give me presenter back. I'll put up a list of items. So we got product owner and tech lead, and then a set of people that can work on it. And I don't want to treat this as a cast in stone, one size fits all. We need to be adaptive with it. So let me just use one example, which is the DPDK. This one could be blown up to something much larger and have to do with optimizing every aspect of Cord. But there's a very narrow thing here, and we have someone willing to step up, and I don't think it's going to take 20 hours a week on the architecture lead to support this. They just need to be able to ask some questions. So maybe that's not a brigade. I don't know. Do we try to capture all work like this as a brigade or not? And while I'm sure I could get someone from an operator to say, yeah, we want that, because of course everyone wants performance.
In charge of that?
Well, so but they're not right. So this is I'm kind of just challenging the one size fits all. I think that I'm sort of asking the question.
Yeah.
Using this as a test case, does that the model sounds right in general, but I'm wondering if it's
there are some claims out there with OVS acceleration, you can get a factor of 10 improvement on servers, and I think they want to see that. And obviously, Intel wants to show that, you know, they can do DPDK and SRIOV acceleration and other, you know, smart things. So I'm all for it, and especially if, you know, if Ixia is already working with Metronome on that, so maybe if they can step up, you know, to show and come up with independent reports, basically, on this performance numbers.
Yeah, so the question then is, do we do a narrowly focused Intel and 2 other people, or do we turn this into something more general purpose? I would really like to get what Intel has into the system, so I wouldn't want to jeopardize that. Let's go to this, just as an example, we go to scale the VSG up. That's something that we've been wanting to do for a long time. I wouldn't need to wait for some operator to say we want it, just to say that it was worth doing. So I guess part of the attraction of brigades is that we can write a description that we can take out more broadly than the 30 people on this call.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that's the right way to think about it. If the 30 people on this TST call that are enough vested in Cord that they know what needs to be done and they're willing to take tasks already, then we don't need to do anything special for them. It's for the larger community we need to do this. So maybe it is a misuse of brigade to deal with, you know, getting Intel to bring their optimizations in. If I were to look for something that is a little bit broader and we just don't know who's going to step up to do it, let me just go to the upgrade as an example. I know this is something a lot of people want, and it's just not going to get done if we don't figure out a way to recruit people to do it. The 2 demos are both something that will have broad appeal to people getting involved with, I believe. And so where am I going with this? The answer is I don't know.
That's too broad, right? For a brigade to be able to function effectively, it needs a narrow, well-defined, very, you know, you're very sure what the work is to be done for that, right? Now, demo light and write code or demo multi-access code, I believe that we don't have these narrow definitions for exactly what is the work involved.
Okay, so this is all right. So this is interesting because your inclination is similar to mine, which is we want something narrowly focused. We know what the deliverable is. We could probably even approximately scope the work.
Yeah.
And so I believe that's possible for the DPDK. That's not going to take 6 months, and it's not going to take 20 hours from a tech lead, and it's a week, and it's not going to take 4 to 8 developers. So that's
I mean, I think it can vary depending on what brigade is and you know, what it's trying to accomplish, right? So if you scope the work right, you will realize, you know, how much hours and how many people and so on you need, right? But I'm pretty sure it'll vary from brigade to brigade. But we need to determine that first before we determine how much time and resources we need in the brigade, I would think.
So I would agree with Saurav that having a very focused goal and target to shoot at is more important than the rest of the characteristics I talked about in the framework.
Okay, so let me try all right, so we agree that it's variable. You put up kind of a model that will work in some cases, and we have examples that maybe are a little bit different. So let me just try to see if anything comes of this. We know Intel wants to step up. They've got an engineer ready to go. Is there anyone in the room that's interested or online that's interested in helping to lead that from working from the inside of the platform?
You're talking about the first one?
The first one.
Yeah. I think we should definitely put, independent companies like Ixia and Netronom, who are, and Intel, three of them together. But, I'm sure either Netronom or Ixia should lead that because they have already started on that path.
No, we need the technical. I'm now going back to Asim's slide, which was the architecture/technical lead. This is someone that is familiar enough with the code base to make sure that whatever the volunteers bring to the table makes it into the code base. Does it have to be an ON lab person? That's an example, though, of
I guess the candidates we have, Larry, is Ashok from Intel. Maybe we got Arek from Ixia or Nick from Netronom. Those are the guys who understand acceleration and OVS acceleration, or DPDK acceleration. So one of them should take the lead.
Okay.
Yeah, Tom, I would nominate one of our technical architects on our side, but I certainly represent the Ixia and core relationship or lab relationship.
All right, so let's not try to settle it here, but let me just, I'm just trying to make note of those that have potential.
NIC is the Nick from Netronom. He's working already. They've been already working with some of the acceleration techniques, maybe what Eric suggested, and then Ashok from Intel.
Okay.
But it seems like there's definite interest.
There's definite interest there. So we need to do some homework outside of this room to turn that into an official brigade, but I think there's, are there other items on this list that someone would want to take the effort, put in the effort to try to form the brigade? Not that you're signing up to do all the work, but we need someone to say, I'm willing to go pull together the information that then can be shopped around to find more volunteers.
Maybe on multi-axis edge, I'm thinking that we should, since it involves Cord and our Cord.
How about you take the lead and I'll help you out?
Okay.
All right, so this will be to be scoped, to be recruited, to be defined, but, all right.
Are things like upgrade Ubuntu and upgrade Mass really brigades? Or are they just work items that get put in with what we're doing?
If we're taking, at least in my opinion, if we're taking the idea of brigade that Honors is doing, those are not brigades.
I think what we're highlighting is these are items that can't be covered by the core team and we need help on, right?
Yeah.
So
all right, so good point. So we're making some distinctions here. So if I started in, all right, so if it starred, there's volunteers to put together a brigade plan and recruit community.
Can Asim share his link to that slide you presented?
I have that.
Have that? Okay.
All right, so there's the other point that's just made here is that there are other work items that just aren't going to get done unless we find people willing to take on those tasks. And to your point.
And some of that is they'll get people assigned if someone in the community thinks it's a high enough priority for them.
That's right. If this is high priority to you, please take on the task. But it's not a brigade. Well, so what about integrating Kubernetes?
I mean, I'm interested, right? I'm not sure I have the cycles right now. And I'm wondering if some of that, particularly those three that you're at, integrate, upgrade, and upgrade, or I kind of put a brigade or an umbrella around it, it is separate, that those layers of separation we talked about. That I might see as a brigade. And these would be kind of work items that maybe come out of that brigade.
All right.
That makes sense. I mean, I'm by no means the authority on what is and what is not a brigade.
Yeah.
Yeah, just what you said, David, seems to be less well defined than those ones on the board there.
All right, so integrate Kubernetes is certainly different than it's more like a work item and less like a brigade. But it is, I think people would find it, an engineer or two might find it a compelling project to work on. If for no other reason than to get up to speed on the internals of Cord. And who wouldn't want to work in Kubernetes? It's a wonderful system. So in that respect, I think it's attractive.
Yeah, I guess Brigade just kind of formalizes that a bit and then adds kind of the technical lead aspect to it, right? So,
right.
Maybe you're interested, but you don't know exactly how to do that yourself, or it takes more than one person and you want to kind of have some more organization around it, then you have that technical lead that's helping you to define the work that needs to be done and drive that.
Trying to look at the rest of the list here.
Yeah, I mean, some of that with Kubernetes in particular, it's like, okay, this is going to be integrate the OpenStack Kubernetes thing to start with, for example, and then talk with the core team to figure out how to deploy, how to, start deploying container VNFs through Kubernetes.
Yeah.
So
well, I was focused on the latter, but
and
right, so what I'm doing right now.
Also, in the Kubernetes, there's a couple of the projects are going on, like the cluster federation and the management for this. So maybe it's fetch for us better for the Cord architecture, but yeah, someone have to lead. I'm also interested, but I couldn't lead. I already leading the ONUP integration nowadays.
Who was that?
And this is Murat.
Thanks.
And I'm interested in the opportunities Cord ONUP integration. And then next week I will have a meeting with the ONUP team, and especially also the open open Mano teams. So I am figure out how can we integrate with the Cord or the ONUS, which one is the more reliable for these architectures.
So that last one, there's pretty much a brigade that you've already set up.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
For the ONAP, you have a brigade
on the ONO side, right?
Oh, on the ONO side. Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
So on the Cord side, I think there is interest in people just touching base and tracking what's going on. So what I'm going to do is set up a call, and we'll see what comes of it. It's also the case that the analytic Cord has involvement there because they're trying to figure out how to take advantage of
the CAE integration.
Yeah.
So Larry, maybe the next step here is for each of these, let's put together some information or description for each of them, and then work with David as well in terms of the community engagement to get it staffed.
So what I was, right, so we can do that, but I didn't want to put the effort into it if there's whatever we are, 30 people online here. These are the 30 most likely people to lead a brigade. And if no one is willing or able to, or interested in any of these two, and again, I guess it's chicken and egg problem. You don't know enough about what it means, but I think the people on the call have a pretty good sense of what these are about. So I'm just polling everyone in the room and online if there are any of these that you would be interested in exploring further as a brigade, that I can put a star by it because there's someone that's willing to at least try to turn it into brigade.
I'll take Kubernetes. I'll at least hold a meeting and see if there's some interest there.
Okay. Anything else?
I think the upgrade stuff's just tasks, so I'm not sure that's brigade. The light and right I'm interested in. If the first step here is to say, will someone call a meeting, I'm willing to do that.
Sure. All right. Fair enough. Whoops. David will take meetings.
I can set up WebEx like no one. No. And you said you were going to basically set up the meeting for the last one.
Yes. Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah. We can get somebody from OPNFV to maybe on the cord into OPNFV. I think Brian Sullivan, maybe he can assign someone.
Well, so there's kind of an effort already underway. Just in talking between what the OPNFV folks and Brian in particular, Guru has actually sent out a request for who's interested in helping here, because to the Cord board this was important, and therefore he's gone back to the board to find people. So I guess in that respect, this is a potential as well to come of that. This the last one on ONAP, I don't know that this is going to turn it. I would hesitate to call that a brigade. I think it's so exploratory right now that I would. Whoops, let me. David's tracking here is confusing me. Explore that.
I'm just thinking, Larry, maybe we can quickly review the A-Cord slide one more time, since XCI is here and we can put them to work quickly.
So in the notes section for the candidate brigade slides, I added the names of people who were going to start work.
Good. I didn't get all the names. Good.
And then the BPDK, performance hours, XCI, metronome, and Empower.
Yeah. Okay, so we're going to lose people here, but maybe where we will A-Cord.
Slide 7.
Yep, got it. Okay, just a couple more minutes, and then we'll finish up.
Okay, so I think let me just introduce Arek. Maybe you guys can introduce yourself and Irvan, say a few words, your involvement, and thanks by the way. So everyone else, I don't want to go through all the names, but Larry is our I guess CTO and lead for all the work we're doing here, and the rest of us are either from service providers or employee of Oil Labs. So Santia is from Verizon and AT&T, obviously. So maybe say a few words and then you get to know everyone quickly.
Great. So really happy to be here and meet all these wonderful people in person. Larry, we've been on a couple of calls with you before. I'm a senior director of product management leading our visibility portfolio. XCI, as you know, is a world leader in network visibility and network test solutions. We've contributed some equipment, I believe, with my colleagues to one lab for testing purposes and traffic generation. And most recently, we've led a project with this wonderful young gentleman, Anirban, who's one of our senior protocol architects, to develop visibility framework within the A-Cord environment, and that's why we're really here to ensure how we can really contribute these efforts and turn it into the actual master brand.
So Anirban actually did the work on this?
Anirban did the coding in Solid. So just from kind of a high level perspective, we got our visibility solutions are deployed in, I would say, across every major service provider and enterprise network infrastructure data centers. And really, if you look at kind of the core subset of the solution portfolio, it comes down to data access, so data access in physical and virtual environments, filtering, aggregation, and then distribution of this data, as well as the analytics that we also provide. So what we've done is we've actually taken some of the core components that would effectively provide virtual data access, filtering and distribution, and then moving it upstream to our application intelligence engine that sits as an XOS app that Anirban has implemented. And from the last call, we have actually made some progress where we have the full stack kind of working. Not through the A-Cord data path itself, but through our own.
So this is where you've done some work on the mirroring feature.
The mirror tap technology.
The tap, right?
Yeah, just plugging.
So that
is basically 3 points. Physical tap gets access, one and handle the data as efficiently as we can, and then reduce the data and send it to an engine which is doing the analytics part of it.
Right. So it's the tap feature, just to focus on one piece. It's the tap feature that we would like to figure out how to make general purpose and get it as a general part of the platform that we can build on.
Yeah. We're interested to contribute and share with a broader community. I believe, I don't know if you have a demo. Were you able to
Well, I'm conscious of the time, so I don't wanted to wrap this up. So why don't we go ahead and close the TST out, and then we can continue this.
Okay, excellent. Okay.
Everyone online, is there any other last bits of comment or questions? All right, thanks everybody. And this is obviously just a first draft. This deck is online, and feel free to come in and make it better. Thank you.